guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be kind of just, I don't know if it's going to be entertaining or interesting for anybody out there. It's just kind of going to be me talking about my job and what a typical shooting day looks like for me and stuff, like just in case anybody out there is interested in getting into wedding photography. It's a really rewarding career. It's really enjoyable. And it's flexible in some ways, not necessarily others. So yeah, I just wanted to talk to you guys about it because it is getting to the end of my slow season, and I'm going to be getting busy again with weddings, and so I'm starting to get amped for that. Like, I'm starting to get pretty excited about it. I have, I believe, about 32 weddings to do this year. A few of them are my own couples for my own business, and then some of them are me assisting other photographers with their couples. So it's going to be a really fun year. I have a pretty good relationship with a couple other photographers. Like I said, I like assist them in their weddings as needed, so that'll be really fun. But I just want to kind of tell you guys what my day typically looks like when I'm shooting a wedding. So weddings, I'm going to use like an average wedding, which would be about an 8 or 9 hour day. Sometimes people pay for more time than that. Like, sometimes it can be anywhere from, some people pay for less, even if they're on a bit of a budget. So I have done weddings as short as like 4 to 6 hours and as long as 12 hours of coverage. So I do both ends of that spectrum pretty regularly, but I guess to average it out, it would be around 8 or 9 hours for like an average typical wedding day. So usually I start my day by, getting up, getting ready. The good thing about, it's good and bad, I guess you could say, but the hours when you're shooting a wedding start a little bit later, obviously, because even when you're shooting the getting ready portion of the day, the ceremony usually isn't till about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and you only need a couple of hours to do the getting ready photos. So it's not like you're starting at like 8 or 9 in the morning usually. Sometimes I start around 11, 12, sometimes a little bit later, sometimes 1 or 2. It depends on how many hours of coverage they want. But essentially, I'm not starting super early in the morning, so I'm able to get up at like a relaxing pace, get up, have a coffee at home, get ready, put on some makeup, get dressed and everything like that. And it's nice. It's nice for me because I'm one of those people that, like, if I have to be somewhere super early, I end up rushing around in the morning and like looking for all my stuff and making sure I have everything, and it's stressful because like I don't want to leave the house and forget something. So it's nice to start a little bit later because then I can really go through everything at like a leisurely pace, and then I can look at my bag and be like, okay, do I have all my lenses? Do I have all my gear? Like, everything I need for today? And then I can take off after that. Depending on how far away the wedding is though, like if I'm doing one that's like 2-3 hour drive away, which I do sometimes, then obviously I have to account for the drive. So I do sometimes do a little bit earlier days, but yeah, a typical day would be like I get up, get ready, and then around like midday, like noon or so, is when I would head off to the usually the place where the bride is getting ready, so a hotel or her home. And then when I arrive there, I just kind of start out by doing some detail shots of her jewelry, her shoes, her accessories, all that kind of stuff, like kind of flat lays of those things, candid photos of her getting her makeup done, her bridesmaids getting their makeup done, just kind of candid photos as they kind of chat with each other and hang out. And then either a second photographer would go and shoot the guys getting ready, or if I was, then I would leave the bride at a certain point and go over to wherever the guys are getting ready, which is usually, again, either another room in the hotel or their home or something like that. So I would go over to the guys, and usually the guys, they don't have as much to get ready. So they're kind of, by the time I arrive, they're usually still just like shooting the shit, like having a beer or something, like still in their like sweatpants and stuff. So usually when I get there is when they start to kind of pull themselves together, get dressed and stuff. Obviously, I don't watch them get dressed the same way. Sometimes brides because I'm a woman, I guess they're more comfortable just changing in front of me, like in just their bra or whatever, and they don't care. But obviously, when it's guys, it's a little bit different. So I let them, you know, get dressed privately, obviously. And then again, I will do like detail shots of like their cufflinks, their tie, their shoes, boutonnieres, things like that. And then I usually get detail shots of them as they're doing up their jackets and things like that, putting boutonnieres on the jackets, and again, candid shots of them hanging out with their wedding party and their parents and things like that. And then it is when things really get kicked up. I really enjoy the first part of the day because it is more relaxed. It's the getting ready time. You can there's no like routine, there's no pressure really in the morning time. And then after I do both sets of getting ready photos, we go to the ceremony location, and that's when things really start to go like ham, you know? So then I will go and get myself in position to shoot the ceremony. Like, I make sure that I take a look at the space, take a look at what kind of lighting I'm going to need, the angles. If there's a videographer, I try and touch base with the videographer and let them know where I want to set up and where they're going to set up, and make sure we're not in each other's shots, you know, kind of thing. So there's a lot of communicating that goes on at the beginning of the ceremony. I talk to the officiant usually to make sure certain churches and things like that have like rules that you can't use flash, or you can't walk in certain spots, or whatever the case may be. So I make sure that I check with the officiant about that, about any rules regarding where I can and can't be, what I can and can't use, things like that. So yeah, when I first get to the ceremony, I do all my communicating with everybody else involved. I try and get some candid shots if I can of the guests as they're sitting, kind of waiting for the ceremony to get going. And then when it does get going, of course, I'm 100% focused on making sure I get all the absolutely necessary shots, which would be the obvious, like, you know, bride coming down the aisle, like exchanging rings, the first kiss, like the whole thing. I'm just kind of focused on that at that moment, making sure I'm getting all of those must-have shots. And then after the ceremony, it's still pretty chaotic, because immediately afterwards, a lot of times friends and family want to try and talk to the bride and groom and congratulate them and stuff. And meanwhile, I'm usually trying to get them to their photo location and doing the photos, because there's only a short window of time between the ceremony and the reception for photos. So what I usually do, and what I think most wedding photographers typically do, is family photos first. So you get grandma and any little kids out of the way, do the photos with them, let them go, do the parents, let them go, and then when you've got just the wedding party, you go to whatever photo locations they want to take photos at and go through some group shots. I like to do a few different variations of group shot poses, some kind of more candid shots of the bridesmaids and groomsmen, bigger groups of all of them together, and then smaller groups with just the guys and just the girls. And then I try and narrow it down to like just the couple at the end. So then I'll let the wedding party go and enjoy cocktail hour and stuff, and I will shoot just the bride and groom at that point. This whole period of time between ceremony start and reception start can be a little chaotic at first. I mean, now that I've done several weddings, I'm more comfortable with it, but like when you're first getting into it, it can be a little bit stressful because it is a bit of a time crunch. You only have a few hours to get all these photos in, and you really have to have some like in your mind poses that you're gonna just be like, okay, now you stand here and now you do this, and you really have to, the more you do, the more they just come naturally to you because you've done it so many times. But the first couple times you can, like, if you have like kind of a brain fart moment where you're like, oh, I'm not thinking of any good poses right now, I'm not thinking of any good like composition and stuff, like it can be stressful because you know you're on the clock and running out of time. So just keep that in mind if you are like planning to do this or just starting out, that like it may seem stressful at first, but it does get a little bit easier the more times you do it. So then after that is the reception. So most couples that I've shot have some sort of a grand entrance where they're announced in with their wedding party and things like that. So I like to get to the reception space at least like 10 to 15 minutes early. I go in there, again, assess the lighting situation, assess where I want to be standing, where they're going to be entering, and get everything good to go and get in my, you know, my position for when they get announced in, and then I take photos as they get announced in. And then I can finally, usually, I mean, sometimes they do their first dance right away, so I would shoot that as well. But after that, I can finally kind of take a breather because the last maybe 3 or 4 hours have been go, 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 go. So I can finally sit down, kind of like find my seat, take a breath, and usually that's around the time where I would just kind of be waiting for dinner to start. And I didn't mention this, I should have mentioned this a second ago, but before they enter, when I go into the reception space, the first thing I do after I figure out where I want, you know, to stand when they enter and stuff like that, while I'm waiting for them to be announced in, I like to go around and take some detail shots of decor and centerpieces and things like that, because like the bride and groom put so much effort, especially the bride usually put so much effort into making the space really beautiful for their big day, and you want to make sure you capture that for them because they're going to want to remember that. So I try and take as many photos as I can while I'm waiting for them to be entered, to be announced in. I take as many photos as I can of the space, the decor, all that stuff, and then when the DJ comes on and says, all right, everybody can have your attention, that's when I'm like, all right, time to go. Like, so I get in my spot and then they come in and I shoot them and get their, you know, yay, we're married thing. And then they come in and take a seat, and then that's when I can chill and kind of wait for dinner. So when dinner comes out, it's kind of, this is kind of like almost like a break time for me. Usually I'm at a table with other vendors, but sometimes I'm at a table with guests. So obviously if you're at a table with either case actually, but especially if you're at a table with guests, you don't want to be too standoffish. You want to make it a good, you know, like they're stuck at the table with the photographer, but you don't want to be that person that just sits there and doesn't talk to anybody. Like, you're going to want to socialize and make a good impression with the guests, because the better the guest experience is, the better it is for your couple. So I kind of like try and chat with people and whatever, and then usually during dinner is when people have the speeches, between courses and things like that. So eating is a little bit tricky, because you're, okay, my cat just did something, I don't know. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because you have to kind of get up mid-bite, you know, kind of to make sure you catch the speeches as they're happening. So you can't really like sit down and just like eat your food. So it's kind of like getting up and down, over and over again to make sure you get all the speeches. I try and get some decent shots of the person speaking, obviously, and the reaction of the bride and groom, as well as if I have the opportunity, I try and get reactions from the crowd if they're laughing or clapping or anything like that. It's a little bit like, you don't necessarily have to get all 3 of those shots for every single speech, but as long as you get like a pretty good balance of all the speeches, then that's usually pretty good. And then after that, the dances, that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you sometimes have to do a little bit of adjusting with the lighting because you want to make sure, usually they dim the lights for like the dances, and you want to make sure that it's well lit, so that you don't end up with a bunch of really dark photos. And then the party starts, and the party part is like, you're starting to feel like, okay, the day's almost over, like I can just get through the last little bit. At this point, I'm usually pretty tired, but like it's not too bad because you don't need to like really stand there and just shoot for like 3 hours straight of people dancing. You can kind of walk around, take a few photos, go get like a glass of water or something and just like chat with the guests, and then go back and do another round of photos and stuff. I like to try and get a mix of like partying dancing as well as like slow dancing. Slow dancing is a lot easier because they're moving more slowly, and it's just easier than fast dancing where everything ends up blurry. So it's just all about camera settings and figuring out how to get the right exposure as well as a sharp image when things are moving quickly. So that's something you just have to figure out in terms of how to properly set your camera for that. And then if there is like some kind of grand exit, like some people do fireworks, not fireworks, sparklers at the end of the night, that is a whole different thing. But like I would say the majority of people don't do that kind of thing. They just do like cake cutting, garter toss, those things, and then that's pretty much the end of the night. So that's how a typical wedding day rundown goes for me. It's obviously going to be a lot easier if you have an assistant or a second shooter with you, but that also means you have to pay them, so it means you're making less money if you do it that way. So it's, it's kind of like a give or take kind of situation. Obviously, you don't necessarily have to be making less money if you charge your clients more for that, and that's usually what people would do because they don't want it to eat into their profits. But yeah, usually I'm on my own though, because I find it's just easier than having to trust somebody else with something. I don't know. I'm just very like, I feel more comfortable knowing that I got all my shots and not leaving anything to chance. But yeah, that's how a typical wedding day goes for me. So let me know if you found this interesting, or if you have any other questions that I can answer, if this is something you're like looking at exploring as a possible career path, I guess. I would be happy to answer any other questions you guys might have. And stay tuned for the next video. It'll be back to the normal content. I just thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about this. But this is still a makeup channel. I'm not switching gears. I just decided to kind of tell you guys what a typical day in my job is. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, which will be tomorrow, because I do post a video every single day. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye guys.